My husband thought he could spoil his little mistress using my money. My mother-in-law, instead of stopping him, completely supported it. But they forgot one crucial detail. That corporate black card is in my name. One click, and their entire lives shut down completely. Before we continue, make sure you hit the subscribe button, like, and leave a comment. Your support helps this channel keep growing. The late afternoon sun in Los Angeles is never forgiving. Its deep, blinding orange rays pierce through the windshield of Gwendolyn's pristine white sedan, casting long, dancing shadows across the immaculate Italian leather dashboard. The air inside the cabin was cool, thanks to the constant, quiet hum of the climate control. Yet, for some reason, Gwendolyn's throat felt parched. She adjusted the collar of her tailored cream Tom Ford blazer, ensuring her sleek, dark hair was perfectly in place, and glanced at the Cartier watch circling her left wrist. It was 4:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. She was supposed to be at her gallery in the Arts District by now, overseeing the curation of a contemporary exhibition set to open next week. However, the gridlock on the 405 freeway forced her to sit in idling frustration. Gwendolyn let out a long sigh. Her mind drifted back to the phone call she had with her husband, Zachary, that morning. Zach's voice had sounded raspy, supposedly exhausted from inspecting the site of a new luxury resort development project in Dallas, Texas. "Honey, I probably won't be able to fly back until the day after tomorrow. The negotiations with the investors down here are brutal. Take care of yourself, okay? Don't overwork yourself at the gallery." That was the sweet text message Zach had sent via iMessage 2 hours ago, complete with the kissing emoji that usually made Gwendolyn's heart warm. As the wife who had stood by Zach as he built his career from the ground up until he eventually landed the role of Chief Operating Officer at Prescott Enterprises, Gwendolyn's family's massive real estate and construction empire, she had always given him her complete trust. To her, Zach was the prototype of the perfect husband. Hardworking, loving, and deeply respectful of his mother, Helen. The traffic light ahead remained a stubbornly glowing red. Gwendolyn inched her car forward, following the crawling flow of vehicles. Right in the adjacent right lane, about 2 cars ahead of her, a massive, gleaming black SUV caught her eye. The vehicle stood out among the sea of dusty commuters because of its extreme, showroom-quality cleanliness. Gwendolyn narrowed her eyes. There was something overly familiar about the lines of that SUV. Her heart rate suddenly accelerated when she managed to read the custom license plate on the back. Z1010P. The world seemed to stop spinning for a fraction of a second. Gwendolyn's jaw clenched tight. She knew that license plate by heart. It was the custom plate she had gifted Zach for his birthday last year. The Z stood for Zachary, and the P for Prescott, her family name which he so proudly paraded. It was statistically impossible for there to be 2 identical custom plates in this city. The burning question was, why was that car here, in the middle of the chaotic Los Angeles rush hour, while its owner claimed to be 1,000 miles away in Texas? Gwendolyn tried to think rationally. Maybe it's one of the corporate drivers taking Zach's car in for a detail or a scheduled service. Her inner voice reasoned, trying to soothe her rising panic, but the dark suspicions she had buried in the deepest corners of her mind began to creep up like black fog. Over the past few months, Zach had been taking more and more out-of-state business trips, and Helen, her mother-in-law, had increasingly vanished for entire days, citing country club charity, luncheons, or bridge tournaments that magically took up 12 hours. Gwendolyn's relationship with her mother-in-law had always been frosty, but she had always maintained the utmost grace and etiquette as a dutiful daughter-in-law. The light turned green. The cars began to move. Gwendolyn did not take her usual exit toward her gallery. With hands that trembled slightly but eyes that burned with absolute sharpness, she decided to follow the black SUV from a safe distance. She kept a buffer of 3 to 4 cars so she wouldn't be glaringly obvious in Zach's rearview mirror if it was indeed her husband behind the wheel. The SUV cruised smoothly, seemingly without a care in the world, passing the towering glass skyscrapers before finally turning into an elite enclave of Beverly Hills, known for its high-end automotive row, where a line of luxury European car dealerships stood in magnificent glory. During that agonizing 15-minute drive, a psychological war raged inside Gwendolyn's head. She imagined various scenarios. Was Zach planning a surprise for her? Buying her a new car for their upcoming wedding anniversary? But why lie about being in Dallas? Why the elaborate, perfectly executed theatrical production? Gwendolyn was a woman raised in a cutthroat, old-money corporate environment. She was accustomed to reading data, observing facts, and thoroughly detested assumptions without hard evidence. To her, a lie was the darkest, most impossible stain to wash out of the white fabric of a marriage. The black SUV slowed down, its left turn signal blinking rhythmically, and smoothly pulled into the parking lot of a premium European sports car dealership. A building dominated by transparent glass walls and artistic, museum-quality lighting. Gwendolyn parked her car across the street, hidden under the shade of a large, leafy oak tree. From this vantage point, she had a clear, unobstructed view of whoever was stepping out of that vehicle. The driver's side door opened. A man wearing a perfectly fitted navy blue flannel shirt stepped out with a relaxed, confident swagger. It was Zach. There was no mistaking it. His posture, the way he adjusted his watch, and his self-assured stride were things Gwendolyn had witnessed every single day for the past 7 years. But it was the next sight that sucked all the oxygen out of the air around Gwendolyn. The front passenger door opened, and out stepped Helen. Her mother-in-law was wearing an expensive street, John knit suit and carrying a designer Hermes bag that Gwendolyn knew cost the equivalent of her gallery's operating budget for an entire month. Helen looked incredibly vibrant, her face bright and full of laughter. And then came the final, devastating blow that shattered Gwendolyn's heart into a million irreparable pieces. The rear passenger door opened. A young woman, perhaps in her early 20s, stepped out. Her attire was a sharp contrast to the conservative, old-money elegance of the Prescott family. She wore a skin-tight, glaringly red mini-dress. Her sandy blonde hair flowed down her back, and she immediately wrapped her arm around Zach's arm with an intimacy that screamed possession. Zach didn't pull away. Instead, he leaned in and kissed the side of her head right there in public, right in front of his own mother. And Helen didn't look angry. On the contrary, she reached out and rubbed the young woman's back with deep affection, treating her as if she were the beloved, official daughter-in-law. Gwendolyn gripped the leather steering wheel of her car so tightly her knuckles turned a stark bone white. A fiery heat spread from her chest straight to the crown of her head. It wasn't just the profound betrayal by her husband. It was the ultimate treachery of the mother-in-law she had always treated with the utmost respect and generosity. Tears briefly welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away forcefully. She would not cry. Not here. Not over a man who was playing with fire using money that entirely originated from the Prescott family's empire. She watched the three of them walk into the dealership, laughing brightly, greeted by several salesmen who practically bowed in reverence. They looked like a picture-perfect, happy family celebrating a grand milestone, a family built entirely on a foundation of lies and Gwendolyn's hard-earned resources. Taking a deep breath, Gwendolyn steadied her racing heart. She grabbed her iPhone 15 Pro Max from the passenger seat. Her manicured fingers danced across the screen, opening her JP Morgan Private Bank app and the corporate asset management portal. She stared at the numbers that granted her absolute, undisputed power. Zach might feel like the king of the world holding that supplementary black card and having access to the operational accounts, but he had conveniently forgotten exactly whose signature authorized that access. You want to play pretend, Zach? Let's see how well you act when I tear down the stage I built for you, Gwendolyn whispered to herself. Her voice was ice cold, as unyielding as a glacier that not even the Los Angeles sun could melt. She didn't step out of the car immediately. She waited a few minutes, letting them get comfortable inside, letting them start picking out the dream car that would soon become the monument to their utter destruction. She smoothed her blazer, turned off the engine, and picked up her Tom Ford handbag. With calm, deliberate steps, she exited her vehicle. Her intuition at the traffic light had proven correct. And now it was time for Gwendolyn to turn that intuition into a hurricane that would sweep away every traitor in her path. Her designer stilettos clicked against the granite floor of the dealership's entrance with a constant, rhythmic cadence, reflecting a heartbeat now entirely controlled by cold, hard logic. Each click sounded like a death knell for the fake harmony she had maintained with all her dignity as a wife. The automatic glass doors slid open with a soft hiss, welcoming Gwendolyn with a blast of air conditioning heavy with the scent of premium room fragrance and the distinct, expensive smell of new leather. Inside the massive showroom, the lighting was engineered to make every curve of the displayed vehicles reflect a blinding, intoxicating luxury. Gwendolyn didn't approach them right away. She positioned herself behind a massive marble pillar flanked by decorative indoor palms, a strategic vantage point. Her gaze locked onto the center of the room, where a cherry-red convertible sports car sat under the spotlights. There, Zach stood with his hands on his hips, staring at the car with a spark in his eyes that Gwendolyn had never seen before. A passionate gleam he usually only displayed when winning a massive multi-million-dollar construction bid. Beside him, the young woman Chloe was running her hand seductively along the car's hood. "Baby, this color perfectly matches my skin tone, doesn't it?" Chloe's voice was high-pitched, whiny, and dripping with fake sweetness. It made Gwendolyn nauseous. It was the exact type of voice designed to stroke the ego of a man desperate for validation. Zach chuckled, wrapping his arm tighter around Chloe's shoulders. "Of course, Chloe. Whatever you want. You've been so patient with my crazy work schedule. Consider this a little reward for being so understanding." But what truly twisted the knife in Gwendolyn's gut was Helen. Her mother-in-law wasn't just standing by. She was actively circling the car, inspecting the interior, and nodding in approval. "Exactly, Zach. Chloe needs a car that reflects her new status. She can't be outdone. You know how the one at home has such stiff, rigid taste, always picking out those boring black or white SUVs." Helen sneered sharply. Gwendolyn closed her eyes for a second. She remembered how carefully she had selected that black SUV Zach currently drove, so he would look authoritative and respectable in front of their high-net-worth clients. She remembered how she managed all the household finances, so Helen could live a life of extreme luxury without ever worrying about a single bill. And now, behind her back, she was being branded as boring by the very people surviving on her charity. A young, sharply dressed luxury auto broker approached them, holding a leather portfolio. "What do you think, Mr. Prescott? This is the newest 2026 hybrid series. Incredibly powerful, yet smooth. If Miss Chloe loves it, we can head straight to the VIP lounge to start the paperwork." "I absolutely agree." "Zach, just get her this one. Don't be cheap with your own woman." Helen chimed in with sickening enthusiasm. The fact that her mother-in-law was actively encouraging him to treat this mistress like a wife felt like a dagger straight to Gwendolyn's heart. They were treating this affair with more validity than a marriage legally recognized by the state of California and the Prescott family. Gwendolyn reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. She wasn't going to let this play out according to their script. With steady hands, she took several high-resolution photos and recorded a short video. These pieces of evidence were infinitely more valuable than tears. She recorded Zach kissing Chloe's hand in front of his mother, and Helen intimately whispering something into the mistress's ear. Enough, Gwendolyn thought. She didn't want to just be a passive spectator, but she also wasn't the type of woman to storm over screaming, pulling hair, or causing a trashy scene that would lower her class. Gwendolyn was an art curator. She knew exactly when to put a subject in the spotlight and when to let the darkness swallow it whole. She stepped out from behind the pillar, but didn't walk toward them. Instead, she headed straight for the grand reception desk on the opposite side of the showroom. "Good afternoon. I am Gwendolyn Prescott," she said, her voice calm but radiating absolute authority. The receptionist froze for a moment, struck by Gwendolyn's elegance and the chilling aura she projected. "Oh, good afternoon, ma'am. How may I help you?" "I need to speak with the general manager of this dealership. Tell him the owner of the Prescott Arts Foundation needs a private word regarding the transaction currently taking place on the floor." Gwendolyn gestured slightly toward Zach's group without even turning her head. The receptionist looked confused, but the name Prescott, one of the most powerful real estate families in Los Angeles, whose name Zach was merely borrowing, made her instantly sit up straight. "Right away, ma'am. Please wait in the executive lounge. I'll page Mr. Henderson immediately." Gwendolyn nodded and walked into a private waiting area separated by frosted glass. From here, she could see Zach's back as he laughed with Chloe and Helen, making their way to the VIP room where high six-figure deals were closed over expensive espresso and champagne. While waiting, Gwendolyn unlocked her phone again. She opened her corporate banking app, connected to the Prescott Enterprises master accounts. The screen displayed the list of supplementary black cards she had issued to Zach and Helen. For years, she had given them virtually unlimited spending power as a sign of her devotion. She had never micromanaged their expenses, assuming they were for reasonable lifestyle needs, but seeing them attempt to buy a multi-$100,000 sports car for a mistress using her family's money? That was an unforgivable insult. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Prescott. I'm Henderson, the general manager. It's an honor to have you here." A middle-aged man in a tailored suit and gold-rimmed glasses approached with extreme deference. Gwendolyn stood, shook his hand briefly, and sat back down. "Mr. Henderson, I won't waste your time. The man in the VIP room, Zachary, is my husband, and the older woman is my mother-in-law. The young woman in the red dress, however, is a nobody to our family." Henderson looked shocked but maintained high-level professionalism, remaining silent and listening. "They are currently trying to purchase the red convertible out front." Henderson nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am. Mr. Prescott stated he intends to pay in full this afternoon." Gwendolyn smiled. A smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I just want to clarify one thing. That transaction is going to be processed using a corporate J.P. Morgan Reserve card under Zachary Prescott's name, which is actually a sub-account tied directly to my primary master account. I am not here to stop them from picking out the car. I am here to ensure that when the time comes to pay, they receive the exact surprise they deserve." Henderson swallowed hard. He was starting to catch her drift. "Do not cancel the order right now. Let them feel euphoric. Let them add every premium option. The VIP insurance package, the most expensive custom accessories. Make them feel like they are on top of the world when they imagine holding those keys." Gwendolyn paused, her eyes glinting dangerously. "But the absolute second he hands over that card at your finance desk, I want your system to decline it completely. Hard decline. And don't worry, I will personally be standing right there to explain the exact reason why." Henderson stayed silent for a moment, weighing the risks. But he knew exactly who the Prescotts were. The family held massive equity in several luxury dealership groups across the West Coast. Crossing Gwendolyn meant career suicide. "I understand completely, Mrs. Prescott. We will follow the exact technical procedure you are requesting. It just so happens our system occasionally flags extraordinary transactions if they aren't authenticated by the primary account holder." Henderson replied very carefully. "Perfect. Now, go serve your VIP guests. Give them 5-star treatment. Make sure they feel incredibly wealthy today." Gwendolyn stood up, adjusting her handbag. "I'll be sitting at the espresso bar over there, enjoying my coffee while I wait for the climax of this little show." Gwendolyn walked out of the manager's office with the grace of a queen who had just perfectly aligned her chessboard. In the distance, she saw Zach step out of the VIP room briefly to grab a brochure. His face was glowing with the arrogance of victory. He had no idea that every laugh escaping his lips was a debt he was about to repay in unimaginable humiliation in just a matter of minutes. She sat on a velvet stool at the dealership's espresso bar, facing the main finance desk. She ordered a black espresso, no sugar. The bitter taste perfectly matched her mood. She pulled out her phone again. Her thumb swiped to a contact named Mr. Sterling. "JPM Private Wealth. The game begins," Gwendolyn whispered, as the barista placed the demitasse on the counter. She took a slow sip, letting the bitter heat coat her tongue. Her eyes locked onto Zach. He was now walking toward the finance desk, Chloe clinging to his arm, stepping with arrogant swagger. He was entirely oblivious that every inch of marble floor he stepped on was a trapdoor Gwendolyn had just rigged to drop. Zach puffed out his chest as if he owned the entire Beverly Hills real estate block. On his right, Chloe leaned her head affectionately on his shoulder, giving him a sickeningly fake look of adoration. On his left, Helen walked with her chin up, looking down her nose at the dealership staff. To them, this afternoon was a victory lap, a declaration that they had successfully escaped the shadow of Gwendolyn, whom they viewed as the only obstacle to their absolute freedom. "Mr. Henderson, please expedite the paperwork. I want this car delivered to the penthouse in Century City tomorrow morning. And make sure the giant red bow is perfectly tied. It's a very special gift." Zach's voice boomed across the showroom, echoing off the polished cars. Chloe squealed in delight, kissing Zach's cheek without caring who was watching. "Oh my God, Zach, you are literally the most amazing man ever. I can't wait to post this. My friends are going to die of jealousy." Helen chimed in with a forced laugh. "Of course, Chloe. My son didn't get this successful on luck. It's all hard work. He deserves to spoil the woman who truly loves him, not someone who acts like a robotic dictator at home." Sitting just 30 feet away, Gwendolyn felt a pulse throb at her temple. Hard work. She almost burst out laughing. Zach had only reached the COO position because Gwendolyn's late father had handed him the title in the Capitol. The construction division Zach managed was merely a branch of the Prescott family ecosystem. For years, it was Gwendolyn working behind the scenes, cleaning up his administrative messes, lobbying investors through her art gallery connections, and ensuring cash flow remained stable while Zach was busy playing the corporate hotshot for the cameras. Zach pulled up an ergonomic leather chair in front of the finance director's desk with a theatrical flourish. He pulled out the Tom Ford alligator leather wallet Gwendolyn had bought him 2 years ago and extracted a heavy, sleek metal card, the J.P. Morgan Reserve Corporate Black Card. It was the ultimate symbol of financial supremacy Gwendolyn had entrusted to him for operational ease. "Put it all on this. Don't worry about the limit, just run it," Zach told the finance manager, who looked slightly nervous. Gwendolyn watched over the rim of her espresso cup. She heard Zach bragging to his mother about their upcoming trip to the Maldives next month. The mask of the loyal, hard-working husband had completely shattered in Gwendolyn's eyes. The man who kissed her forehead every night and whispered "I love you" was living a sickening parallel life. "I need a new bag too, Zach. I saw the new collection at the Chanel boutique down Rodeo Drive earlier," Helen interjected, her voice dripping with greed. "Relax, Mom. After we finalize Chloe's car, we'll head over there. This card covers everything. The money on here won't run out for 7 generations." Zach replied with an arrogant laugh that made Gwendolyn's stomach churn. His hubris had peaked. He felt invincible because, in 7 years of marriage, Gwendolyn had never audited his personal expenses. She had trusted him too much, thinking financial freedom was a sign of a supportive wife. Instead, it became the exact weapon he used to build a sandcastle for his mistress. The finance director began typing the vehicle data into the system. Meanwhile, Zach continued trying to impress Chloe with the car's horsepower and torque specs, even though Gwendolyn knew he didn't know the difference between a V8 and a V6. He just wanted to look dominant. Chloe, on the other hand, was busy taking selfies in front of the red car. She posted it to her Instagram story with the caption, "Surprise from the best future hubby and mother-in-law. New baby in red." Gwendolyn checked her own phone. Chloe's account was public, and the post appeared instantly. A bitter smile crept onto Gwendolyn's lips. "Enjoy your last 5 minutes acting like a rich man's fiancé, Chloe. Mr. Prescott. The total comes to $385,000 after luxury taxes and the premium warranty package. Would you like to add the 5-year prepaid maintenance plan?" the finance director asked formally. "Add everything. The most expensive tier." "I don't do half measures," Zach answered without blinking. He didn't even glance at the monitor. To him, those numbers were just zeros that his wife's family system would automatically pay off. Helen nodded proudly. "That's my boy. Don't be like your stingy wife." Getting her to approve the landscaping budget for the mansion took months of arguing. Gwendolyn closed her eyes and inhaled the cooling scent of her espresso. She remembered the landscaping issue perfectly. She wasn't stingy. She had discovered that the contractor Helen hired was her distant cousin, who was inflating the invoices by 300%. Gwendolyn was just doing her job as a sane financial manager. But to them, her financial prudence was a sin that ruined their endless party. Zach began signing the digital release forms with his Mont Blanc pen. He felt like he was on top of the world. In his mind, he had successfully balanced two lives: the official wife, who provided old money stability, and the secret mistress, who fed his ego. He thought he was the smartest man in Los Angeles. But Zach forgot one fundamental fact about his wife. Gwendolyn wasn't just an art curator. She was the only daughter of the most ruthless real estate tycoon of his generation. Cutthroat business DNA flowed directly through her veins. She never destroyed things messily. She destroyed them with surgical precision. Gwendolyn checked her Cartier watch. It was 4:57 p.m. Exactly 3 minutes until the corporate banking system synchronized for the evening. She sent a quick text to Mr. Sterling. "Execute now. Close all access, freeze all supplementary accounts, and reroute all 2FA to my personal cell." She saw the finance director take Zach's heavy metal card and slide it into the merchant terminal. Zach was still laughing, completely ignoring the impending doom that should have been tingling on the back of his neck. He was already making dinner reservations at a Michelin-star rooftop restaurant. "Just a moment, sir." "Processing the payment now," the finance director said with a polite smile. Gwendolyn set her empty espresso cup down. She stood up, smoothed her tailored blazer, and began walking slowly toward the group. Her face was completely expressionless, but her eyes radiated a terrifying calm like the ocean's surface right before a tsunami makes landfall. At the desk, the terminal's yellow light blinked, signaling the verification process. Zach had his back to Gwendolyn, still boasting to Chloe about how dropping 400 grand felt like pocket change to him. "I always tell my mom, money is meant to be enjoyed, not hoarded like Gwendolyn does," Zach said, his voice loud and condescending. Gwendolyn stopped exactly 10 feet behind him. She could smell the Tom Ford cologne she had bought him last week, a scent that now reeked of rotting betrayal. "Of course, Zach. Money is meant to be enjoyed." Gwendolyn's voice sliced through the air, calm, precise, and razor-sharp, instantly killing the laughter at the desk. Zach flinched violently. His shoulders tensed, and he slowly turned around. His eyes widened in absolute horror as he saw his elegant wife standing there, staring at him with a gaze that could pierce steel. Beside him, Helen nearly dropped her Hermes bag. Chloe immediately unlatched her arm from Zach, her face draining of all color. At that exact second, the credit card terminal let out a long, shrill, piercing beep. Red text flashed across the finance director's monitor, large enough for Gwendolyn to read from where she stood. "Transaction declined. Account frozen. Contact issuing bank." The atmosphere around the finance desk, previously filled with arrogance and joy, instantly morphed into a suffocating, dead silence. The terminal's beep echoed like a judge's gavel slamming down on a guilty verdict. Zach stood frozen, his neck stiff, his eyes darting between the glaring red monitor and the statuesque figure of his wife. "What is this? Run it again!" Zach snapped at the finance director, trying to mask his panic with manufactured outrage. His face, previously flushed with pride, was now burning red with embarrassment. "That card has no limit. Do you know who I am? Check your Wi-Fi connection." The finance director, looking uncomfortable, pressed the retry button. "I apologize, Mr. Prescott. I'm trying again, but the system is showing a hard decline. There's a permanent block flag on this account, sir." Helen, who had been looking down her nose at everyone just minutes ago, now stared at Gwendolyn with a mix of terror, hatred, and defensiveness. She stepped forward, trying to shield her son from Gwendolyn's freezing aura. "Gwendolyn, what on earth are you doing here?" Helen's voice shook, though she tried to sound sharp. "Why are you showing up and ruining the mood? Are you stalking us?" Gwendolyn didn't answer immediately. She walked slowly toward the desk, glancing briefly at Chloe, who was now staring at the floor, trying to hide behind her blonde hair. Gwendolyn then shifted her gaze directly into her mother-in-law's eyes. "Ruining the mood, Helen?" Gwendolyn asked, her tone silky but carrying the weight of an anvil. I was just taking an afternoon stroll after hearing my husband was exhausted from a brutal board meeting in Dallas. It turns out Dallas relocated to a Beverly Hills Porsche dealership. Gwen, listen, Zach stammered, raising his hands. It's not what it looks like. I was just keeping my mom company. She wanted to look at cars, and Chloe here. She's just a personal assistant from the office, helping us pick out options. Gwendolyn offered a thin smile that made the hair on Zach's arms stand up. An office assistant you call baby? And kiss in public? Since when did my father's corporation update its HR policies to include that, Zach? And you, Helen. Gwendolyn locked eyes with her MIL again. You said I was stiff, boring, that I don't know how to treat a man. Feeling cornered, Helen dropped the polite facade. She crossed her arms, trying to summon whatever courage she had left. Yes! That's the truth! You're too obsessed with your dead paintings and that stupid gallery to realize your husband needs a real woman's attention. Zach is a powerful man. He needs someone who spoils him, not someone who talks about profit margins and contracts all day like you. Gwendolyn nodded slowly, as if listening to a fascinating lecture. So, according to you, this betrayal is entirely justified because I was busy working to ensure you could carry a Birkin and live in a Pacific Palisades mansion? You do know exactly whose bank account pays for your lifestyle, don't you? Don't be arrogant, Gwendolyn! Helen shrieked, her voice starting to attract the attention of other customers in the showroom. Zach works his fingers to the bone. He runs that company. You just sit pretty on your daddy's trust fund. Chloe is 100 times better than you. She gives him warmth, and she actually respects me. Zach panicked, seeing his mother lose control. Mom, stop. Gwen, please, don't listen to her. She's just emotional. Let's talk about this at home, okay? I just need to fix this card issue first. It's probably a glitch with the corporate server. There is no glitch, Zach. Gwendolyn cut him off with absolute finality. She stepped up to the finance desk, picked up the heavy metal black card, and snapped it clean in half right in front of Zach's face. The sharp crack echoed satisfyingly in Gwendolyn's ears. This account is under Prescott Enterprises. I am the primary signatory. I just revoked your access, Zach. Not just this card, but every single card in your wallet, including the platinum card Helen uses for her grocery shopping. Helen's face went ghost white. What? You can't do that. That's Zach's money. He's your husband. He is my husband on paper, yes. But he chose to play husband to someone else today. Gwendolyn pointed at a trembling Chloe. And you, Helen, chose a side. You facilitated this affair. You enjoyed the fruits of his embezzlement. So from this second forward, do not expect a single dime of my money to flow into your hands. Zach reached out to grab Gwendolyn's arm. Gwen, please. Not in front of everyone. It's humiliating. I'm the COO of your company. Gwendolyn swatted his hand away with utter disgust. A COO who cannot maintain his own integrity is not entitled to my respect. You're humiliated because your card declined? That's nothing, Zach. True humiliation is when the world realizes you are just a fraud trying to buy a sugar baby using your wife's inherited wealth. Chloe, who had been silent, finally found her voice. Look, lady, don't blame Zach. We love each other. He told me you never have time for him. Gwendolyn slowly turned her head. She looked Chloe up and down with an expression of such concentrated disdain that the younger woman visibly shrank. You're pretty. I'll give you that. But you aren't very smart when it comes to picking a sugar daddy. The man you're clinging to? Without my signature on his paychecks, he is heavily in debt and officially unemployed. Enjoy your grand romance with a zero balance. Helen screamed hysterically. Gwendolyn, you have gone too far. I am your mother-in-law. How dare you speak to your elders this way? A good mother guides her son to be a man of honor. She doesn't help him commit adultery. Gwendolyn fired back, coldly. You ceased to be my mother-in-law the second you called me boring and chose her. As of tomorrow, you and Zach need to find a new place to live. The estate you reside in is owned by the Prescott Family Trust, And I've already instructed my legal team to serve you with an eviction notice. Zach's knees gave out. He collapsed into the dealership's waiting chair, burying his face in his hands. He knew Gwendolyn never made empty threats. Every single luxury he enjoyed the custom SUV outside. The Patek Philippe watch. His country club status was tied to one string named Gwendolyn. And she had just violently cut it. Gwendolyn turned to the dealership manager, who was standing awkwardly nearby. Mr. Henderson, I apologize for the disruption. Cancel their order. They can't afford the down payment, let alone the monthly financing. She turned and walked away, leaving behind a shattered Zach, a hoarsely screaming Helen, and a crying Chloe, who had just realized her dream car was evaporating into thin air, along with the reputation of the man she thought was a billionaire. Gwendolyn's heels clicked across the floor again, but this time, the rhythm felt lighter. She didn't feel sad. She felt liberated. However, she knew this was just the opening act of the grand purge she was executing on her life. She didn't go straight to her car. She stopped at the cafe area near the exit, sitting where she had a full view of the finance desk. From a distance, she watched Zach looking like a lost child. He was frantically pressing his phone to his ear, probably trying to call other banks or colleagues. Meanwhile, Helen was aggressively arguing with the dealership staff, demanding answers as if yelling could magically unfreeze a bank account. Gwendolyn took out her phone. In the corporate world, whoever strikes first wins. And Gwendolyn wasn't about to lose a war she didn't start. Hello, Mr. Sterling? She said smoothly as her private banker picked up. Thank you for the freeze. Now for step 2. Sever our joint accounts for the Pacific Palisades house and the downtown condo. Move all liquid assets into my private trust account under legal supervision, and permanently revoke Helen's status as an authorized user. Mrs. Prescott, administratively, this will be done immediately as you are the primary guarantor. Sterling replied, a hint of hesitation in his voice. Are you certain? This will completely paralyze Mr. Prescott's daily operations. Gwendolyn glanced at Zach, who was now screaming at Chloe, likely projecting his profound humiliation onto the woman he had just promised the world to. I have never been more certain. Mr. Sterling. Cut the oxygen. I will not have him using a single cent of my father's legacy to fund his infidelity. Hanging up, she opened her email and drafted a message to her legal team and the board of directors. Draft the immediate suspension and termination papers for Zachary Prescott from the position of COO at Prescott Enterprises. Cause: severe ethical violations and gross misappropriation of corporate funds. Have security lock down his office tomorrow at 8 a.m. Gwendolyn exhaled deeply. She felt like a chess grandmaster who had just moved her queen to checkmate the opponent's king. Zach had felt safe because he thought Gwendolyn was just a soft, artistic woman obsessed with paintings. He forgot that art requires obsessive attention to detail, the ability to see things others miss, and the ruthlessness to paint over a mistake to save the entire canvas. From her seat, she watched Chloe storm away from Zach, looking furious. The young woman furiously tapped on her phone, likely ordering an Uber Black, ignoring Zach's desperate pleas for her to stay. Apparently, the true love Helen had bragged about only lasted as long as the black card worked. Once the limit hit 0, Zach's charm vanished instantly. Helen slumped onto the dealership's leather sofa. The sheer arrogance she had paraded just moments ago was entirely gone, replaced by the crushing reality of deep anxiety. She finally realized that without Gwendolyn, she was just an aging woman who would have to figure out how to pay for her own electricity and rent. Gwendolyn stood up. She had seen enough of the opening act. As she walked toward the exit, she intentionally slowed down. Zach, noticing her leaving, sprinted to cut her off near the glass doors. Gwen, wait, Zach panted, his chest heaving. You went too far. You humiliated me in public. Do you know how many people just saw that? The staff, the people in the cafe, everyone recorded it. Gwendolyn slowly removed her designer sunglasses, looking at him with a gaze so frigid it shut him up instantly. Humiliated you? No. Zach, you humiliated yourself the second you decided to bring your mother and your mistress into a public place using my money. I merely revealed the reality you've been ignoring. The reality that you own absolutely nothing here except what I allow you to have. I am your husband, Gwendolyn. I have a legal right to half our assets. Zach yelled, desperately trying to scrape his shattered pride off the dealership floor. Half our assets? Gwendolyn let out a dry, hollow laugh. Zach, I suggest you reread the ironclad prenuptial agreement you signed 7 years ago. My father wasn't an idiot. Everything we use, the cars, the houses, your title, are assets shielded by my family's trust. You only have usage rights so long as you uphold your end of the contract. And today, you committed the ultimate breach of contract. Zach froze. In his arrogant haze, he had forgotten about the prenup. Back then, he had been a nobody desperate to secure the bag, signing whatever her high-powered lawyers put in front of him, assuming he would always be the king of her castle. And as for you, Helen, Gwendolyn said, looking at her mother-in-law who had hurried over, looking pitiful. You said I was stiff. Well, starting today, please enjoy the flexibility of a life with absolutely zero financial support from me. I hope Chloe's warmth is enough to pay your heating bills. Gwen, please, don't do this. I just got carried away, Helen pleaded, her voice cracking, desperately looking for a truce. Getting carried away is buying the wrong brand of coffee. Actively helping your son cheat on his wife is calculated malice, Gwendolyn shot back. Don't ever speak to me again. Our relationship died at that finance desk. Gwendolyn didn't wait for a response. She walked out with her head held high. Outside, the LA sun was setting, leaving a dramatic, bruised purple sky over Beverly Hills. She got into her car, locked the doors, and let the silence of the cabin embrace her for a moment. She started the engine. Before stepping on the gas, she looked in her rearview mirror. Zach and his mother were standing aimlessly in front of the dealership. They couldn't even drive home, because the black SUV Zach had arrived in was registered to Prescott Enterprises, and Gwendolyn had already instructed the corporate asset recovery team to track the GPS and repo it tonight. Gwendolyn pressed the accelerator. In her mind, the next chapters were already written. Tomorrow was Monday, the day Zach would find his corporate world locked down, and the day the most ruthless divorce attorney in Los Angeles would knock on his door. Her phone buzzed. An alert from Chase. Declined transaction. Card ending in 4001 attempted $15,000 charge at Chanel. Gwendolyn smirked. Helen was still trying her luck before the system fully purged her. Too slow, Helen, Gwendolyn muttered. She merged onto Santa Monica Boulevard, leaving the dealership without a single glance backward. Tonight, she would sleep beautifully, while the storm she summoned ripped their lives apart. Zach stood paralyzed in front of the dealership, ignoring the stares of the staff, stares that no longer held respect, but pity mixed with disguised mockery. In his hand, the broken pieces of the metal card felt sharp, cutting into his palm to remind him of his bitter reality. Zach, what is going on? You said this was a done deal. Chloe marched up to him. The whiny, sweet voice was gone. Her tone was sharp and impatient. I already posted it on IG, Zach. Everyone is commenting. If I don't go home with this car, I'm going to look like a joke. Zach looked at Chloe wildly. Just be patient, Chloe. Didn't you see my crazy wife? She came in here and caused a scene. It's a technical glitch. She's just bluffing. Bluffing? Helen interrupted, her face haggard and terrified. Zach, she broke your card. I just tried to buy that bag online, and my card is declined too. Gwendolyn holds grudges. You know she does. She's completely cut us off. Zach ignored his mother. He took a deep breath, trying to summon whatever corporate authority he had left. He walked up to Henderson, the manager. Mr. Henderson, listen to me, Zach said, trying to sound calm. This is just a domestic dispute bleeding into business. You know how jealous wives get, but I guarantee the funds are there. Can I write you a personal check or wire it from my private account? Henderson looked at Zach with dead, professional neutrality. I am incredibly sorry, Mr. Prescott. However, as per my conversation with Mrs. Prescott, and considering your corporate profile operates under her authorization, we are barred from doing any further business with you. The system has permanently red-flagged your profile." "Red flagged?" Zach nearly screamed. "That's insane! Give me 10 minutes. I have other accounts." Zach frantically opened the Bank of America app on his phone. He tried to log into his secret personal savings account, the one he used to hide kickbacks from construction vendors. He knew there was at least a couple $100,000 in there, enough for a down payment to save face in front of Chloe. But as he typed his password, a red banner appeared. "Account suspended. Please visit a local branch." "Damn it!" Zach swore loudly. He forgot that account utilized a two-factor authentication linked to his corporate phone number, a number Gwendolyn controlled, and had already rerouted. She didn't just cut the branches. She poisoned the roots of his entire financial existence. Helen began sobbing in the lobby. "What do we do, Zach? I don't have cash on me. We came here to celebrate. How are we even getting home?" Seeing the sinking ship, Chloe showed her true colors. She grabbed her designer purse off the desk. "Look, Zach, if you can't buy this car today, fine. But don't embarrass me like this. I'm taking an Uber." "Chloe, wait! I'll fix this!" Zach grabbed her arm, but she yanked it away aggressively. "Fix what, Zach? Your cards are dead, your accounts are frozen, and your wife just said you're getting fired. I need a man who secures my future, not a fraud living off his wife's allowance." She spat viciously. She spun around and marched out the door, her strong perfume lingering like the scent of his absolute failure. Zach was crushed. His alpha male ego had evaporated in under 20 minutes. He looked back at Henderson pathetically. "Sir, please, can I at least just drive my black SUV home? It's parked out front." Henderson sighed, offering a sliver of cold sympathy. "I'm sorry, Mr. Prescott. We just received an automated alert from the Prescott corporate GPS tracking system. That vehicle has been remotely immobilized. An asset recovery team is already pulling into the lot to collect the keys. I suggest you get your personal belongings out of it immediately." Zach's legs gave way. He slumped onto the dealership floor next to his weeping mother. Other customers were openly recording him. Tomorrow, his face would be all over TMZ or LA gossip blogs. "Mom," Zach croaked. "We have to leave before the corporate guys get here." "Leave in what, Zach?" Helen cried. "My wallet is useless." Zach dug into his pockets and found exactly $85 in loose cash. It was barely enough for an Uber Black back to Pacific Palisades, the mansion Gwendolyn had just told them they were evicted from. He helped his dazed mother to her feet, and they walked out, heads hung low, past the gleaming cars he couldn't afford. Outside, two massive men in tactical gear were already inspecting his black SUV. "Keys." "Mr. Prescott," one of the men demanded blankly. Zach handed them over with a trembling hand. Every thread of clothing on his back, every ounce of his identity, belonged to Gwendolyn. And when she took it back, she left him hollow. The blue rideshare dropped them off at the massive iron gates of the Pacific Palisades estate. Zach stepped out wearily, followed by Helen clutching her useless Hermes bag like a life preserver. But something was wrong. The gates, which usually opened via a sensor in his car, were padlocked with a heavy chain he had never seen before. "Where is the guard? Open the gate!" Zach yelled, shaking the iron bars. A burly security guard stepped out of the guardhouse. It wasn't the usual guy Zach tipped. "Sorry, sir. I have direct orders from Mrs. Prescott and the legal team. No unauthorized access." "I live here! I am her husband!" Zach raged. "The deed is in the name of the Prescott Family Trust, sir. We are just following protocol. Professional movers have packed your personal belongings, and they will be delivered to an address of your choosing tomorrow. For tonight, you need to find a hotel," the guard stated mechanically. Zach stumbled backward. The sheer, terrifying efficiency of Gwendolyn's revenge hit him. She hadn't just cut off his money. She had rendered him homeless in a matter of hours. Helen wailed. "Zach, it's getting cold. I want to sleep in my bed." She threw her own mother-in-law on the street. We'll go to a hotel, Mom, just for tonight. I'll call a lawyer tomorrow, Zach whispered, though he had no idea what lawyer would take his case without a massive retainer. They hailed another ride to a nearby 4-star Marriott, a place Zach usually booked for corporate guests. He hoped his status would get him a room. At the front desk, Zach tried to smile through his exhaustion. 2 deluxe rooms, please. Name is Zachary Prescott. Certainly, Mr. Prescott. Card for incidentals? Zach handed over his final, low-limit personal credit card. He prayed Gwendolyn had missed it. The receptionist ran it. Beep! I'm sorry, sir. It says, account frozen. Do you have another card? Zach looked at Helen. She handed over her personal debit card. Beep. Declined as well, ma'am. How much is it? Zach asked hoarsely. For 2 rooms tonight, it's $650 total. Zach looked in his wallet. He had about $30 left after the Ubers. Can I pay you tomorrow? I am a corporate partner here. I'm sorry, sir. No payment, no room, the receptionist said firmly, glancing at hotel security. The humiliation stung worse than the dealership. He was being treated like a vagrant in a lobby he used to dominate. Helen pulled on his sleeve. Zach, let's go. People are staring. They walked out into the cool Los Angeles night. Zach pulled out his cracked phone and called Chloe, praying she would let him crash at the luxury downtown apartment he had rented for her. She answered, but her voice was venomous. Don't call me, Zach. Your wife's lawyers just showed up. The lease was under your company, and they canceled it. I have 24 hours to vacate. You told me you owned everything. You broke loser. Click. Zach dropped his phone on the pavement. He looked at his mother, sitting on a concrete planter, crying over a bag she couldn't eat or sleep in. The words declined echoed in his head. It was going to be a very long night under the unforgiving California stars. Meanwhile, Gwendolyn stood on the balcony of her secret Century City penthouse, an asset neither Zach nor Helen knew existed. Looking out over the sparkling grid of Los Angeles, she sipped her chamomile tea. Her phone rang. It was Mr. Sterling. Mrs. Prescott, the lockdown is complete. All cards disabled, locks changed at the estate, and he was just turned away from the Marriott. Everything is secured. Thank you, Mr. Sterling. Ensure they cannot access a single cent affiliated with my name, Gwendolyn said calmly. She knew tomorrow morning at corporate HQ would be the final nail in the coffin. At exactly 9 a.m. the next day, the lobby of Prescott Enterprises in downtown LA was buzzing. Rumors of Zach's Beverly Hills meltdown had spread like wildfire through the corporate Slack channels. Zach walked in looking haggard, wearing yesterday's wrinkled flannel. He and his mother had slept in a cheap motel near LAX. He kept his head down, swiping his badge at the executive elevator. Access denied. A security guard approached. Mr. Prescott, by order of the board, your executive access is revoked. Please wait in the second-floor conference room. Humiliated, Zach complied. When he entered the boardroom, Gwendolyn was sitting at the head of the glass table, looking immaculate in a cobalt blue blazer. Beside her sat 2 senior corporate litigators and Henderson from the dealership. Sit down, Zach, Gwendolyn ordered. Gwen, what is this? You can't lock me out. I'm the COO. You're letting domestic issues ruin business, Zach stammered. Gwendolyn slid a thick file across the table. Business? Let's talk business. This is the overnight forensic audit. You used corporate project funds to lease Chloe's apartment. You expensed your business trip to Cabo with her last month. Is that your definition of a COO? Zach turned pale. He thought his embezzlement was hidden. I was going to pay it back. You won't have the chance. The board officially terminated you for cause this morning. Gross negligence and embezzlement, her lawyer stated coldly. Just then, the boardroom doors flew open. Helen barged in, demanding cash from Zach to pay for their motel, but stopped dead in her tracks upon seeing the lawyers. Gwendolyn, you are destroying my son, Helen screamed. Gwendolyn stood up. The rot started from the root, Helen. I'm just pulling the weed. He destroyed himself with his greed, which you happily encouraged. Gwendolyn pulled a blue folder from her bag and slid a document toward Zach. These are the divorce papers. I am not asking for alimony or assets, because legally, you own nothing. Everything you wear and drive belongs to my trust. Sign this, and we are done. Zach stared at the pen. And if I don't? Then this audit goes to the LAPD fraud division at noon. You can leave here a broke, divorced man, or leave in handcuffs facing 10 years in federal prison for wire fraud, Gwendolyn said, flashing a deadly smile. Defeated, crying silently, Zach signed his name. With that stroke of a pen, he was erased from Gwendolyn's world. Have a wonderful life with your new daughter-in-law, Helen. I hope it keeps you warm, Gwendolyn said, walking out the door. 3 months later, the air in Los Angeles was crisp. Gwendolyn sat in her expanded gallery in the Arts District, looking over international exhibition catalogs. The divorce was finalized in record time. Zach had no money to fight it. How are our old friends? She asked her lawyer over the phone. Zachary is renting a tiny studio in the valley. He's blacklisted from real estate development. He's struggling to get a job as a mid-level manager. Helen is trying to sell her old designer bags to consignment shops in West Hollywood, but they won't take them. And Chloe? She vanished to Miami with a new guy. Gwendolyn felt a wave of profound peace. Justice had been served. Later that afternoon, Gwendolyn went to Beverly Hills to buy some high-end canvas supplies. Walking out of the boutique, she saw a familiar silhouette standing near the bus stop. It was Zach. His clothes were worn, and he was counting spare change in his hands. He looked up and saw Gwendolyn walking toward her brand-new, custom Bentley bought entirely with profits from her gallery. Zach froze. He took a step forward, perhaps to apologize or beg. But her 2 private security guards immediately stepped in front of her. Zach lowered his head, realizing the gap between them wasn't just physical anymore. It was the distance between the sky and the bottom of a dark well. Gwendolyn got into her car, turned on some classical music, and drove off without a second glance. Zero balance for you, Zach. Unlimited balance for my new life, she whispered. That night, on the balcony of her Pacific Palisades home, she posted a photo of the LA skyline to her Instagram. The end of a chapter is just the blank canvas for a masterpiece. The drama was over. The black card was dead. But Gwendolyn was finally, truly, alive.